Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We're going back to that horrible world known as the JRC, but before we do the usual disclaimers as to why I look this frazzled right now, I literally just got off of work. This is where I get off early, because I start earlier, and then I have tomorrow off, and I didn't feel like spending the whole day doing videos, so hence you got me this evening. My apologies, I'm exhausted and brain dead. This isn't autistic fog brain. This is autistic. I'm just done. Okay, I'm gonna rant a little bit. So, here's the thing, folks. When you work in the call center and you get a whole group of newbies coming into your team out of nowhere, there's something that the algorithm does that kind of just, trigger warning cursing, fucks the rest of us over. Particularly what ticks me off about this is I'm once again under the sword of freaking Damocles to perform or else. When you have the system rigged, where the newbies, in order to boost their confidence on the phones, are getting all the good calls, and I'm getting all the crap. And when I talk about crap, I'm not talking about, but you should still try. You have individuals calling who won't give you a SKU number, won't give you their email. You wonder why they're calling in a backed up. You see where I'm going, right? Sorry, I have to let loose steam somewhere. Okay. Breathe, Tiff, alright? Alright. Sorry for the ugly mug. In the description box, you're going to find a link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much. They've threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Well, folks, NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill. Please read that article and share it on all your social media. Also included in there is NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding, folks, in case the JRC actually see through of their threat. Also included in there, allergies. The Ozarks first article in regards to the Agape boarding school situation, a so-called, that's now known as Stone for Help boarding school, brain dead. The stupid burns, folks, and it's bad for you. Which is now known as Stone for Help boarding school, a so-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that takes in so-called troubled male teens, that has impending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been thus far substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services, and they include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and folks, that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another doctor who still lives on the premises with full access to the boys, up on multiple, again, substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault of the boys there. You have an attorney general too busy chasing around and lying about drag queens, as well as trying and failing to defund public libraries to actually do his job. And our governor sent help. Please read that article. Share it on all your social media. Also included in there is all the pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign, including the link to this here analysis done by Dr. Fredda. Brain dead. I did mention that. I don't have an edit button. Y'all have to suffer with me. God, I'm saying y'all. Shoot me. Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masemba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, and the ever-present, very self-explanatory Change.org Shut the Judge Roberg Center Down petition. When we discuss the JRC, folks, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you do got young children present, folks, please use your headphones, alright? Trigger warning, this channel is marked not for children for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously parental supervision is very much advised, alright? So where we left off last time, using variables identified by JRC as associated with problem behaviors, more positive and constructive goals are suggested in the table 1 below, which we'll take a look at in a minute. These goals represent the current literature that is readily available in journals such as Journal of Applied Behavioral Analysis, American Journal on Mental Retardation. Oh, Jesus Christ. It's old, folks. Journal of Association of Persons with Severe Handicaps, Journal of Positive Behavioral Interventions, and books such as Communicative Alternatives to Challenging Behavior, Integrating Functional Assessment and Intervention Strategies, Reichel and Walker, 1993. Antecedent Control, Louise Sally and Cameron, 1998, and Positive Behavioral Support, including people with difficult behavior in the community, Kogel, and Dunlap, 1996, and the Communication-Based Intervention for Problem Behavior, a user's guide for producing positive change. Look at how old this is, folks. Okay? Look at how old this is. They are using outdated terms, for crying out loud. These positive behavior supports that Dr. Matthew Israel tries to tell you there's no data on have been around a long time. Matter of fact, by the time he was writing that particular lie, it had already been around for over a decade. So let's take a look, shall we? Let's get a blast from the past here. Look at this. Hypothesized function, escape demands placed on her. Positive educative strategies, minimize demands and directives. Ooh, what a thunk, right? Jeez. Change the form of the demands. Use sign or visual instead of verbal instruction. This goes for those of us, may not actually be able to hear you, like those of us who are autistic and deaf. Teacher to express escape by signing no, stop, or break. You mean you're going to allow us to say no because your most recent ABA handbook says otherwise? And yes, I've seen it. We'll get on to that in that quackery someday. But it's the gold medical standard, Tiffany. There's been a lot of things that have been the gold medical standard. Lobotomies used to be the gold standard, all right? Doesn't make it right. But moving on. Change her level of form of participation, or expect a simpler response. You can have someone be involved with a sport who hates sports but is willing to watch and cheer on their favorite teams. I hate the majority of sports. I like hiking, I like swimming, I like gymnastics. I don't want to play softball. The only thing I want to do with a basketball is shoot it in a hoop. I don't want to play. But to participate with others, I am willing to sit in the bleachers and watch and cheer on the team and interact with the others cheering on the team. It's common sense, people. Reinforce appropriate escape communication by immediately allowing escape. Oh my God, this shocker. Reinforce appropriate escape communication by immediately allowing escape. I'm reading it again. Let's sink in. Teacher to independently access preferred activities, such as my mom taught me, which is how I got into gymnastics and hiking and other such activities. I'm a competitive individual, folks. When I'm put in a sport that I hate, that I am not physically capable of actually participating in, and I just keep losing horrifically, I'm sorry, but it's demoralizing as hell. It didn't help me in any capacity. It didn't raise my self-esteem. It just made me hate myself that much more. And folks, let's face it, back then I didn't need much help in that department. Thankfully, I've been better since I became into adulthood. 1 second, allergies. Decreased presence of non-preferred activities so that the escape will be necessary. Group activities. They're a necessary evil, as I call them. The best way to get used to them and just kind of get yourself through it is to practice. Best way to do that is in doing something we're actually interested in. There has actually been studies been done years ago, and this was something that I really pushed out of my office, that role-playing goes a long way in regards to social action while also teaching social skills all at the same time, but not in a way that makes me want to bash my head in with my brush to escape stupid. And believe me, I had to explain this in detail to some individuals who've been in the field longer than I've been alive. But as the individual that actually had the diagnosis, thankfully I had willing and listening ears. Explaining to them that yes, we like role-playing. We like role-playing in the form of D&D. We like role-playing in the form of Shadowrun. We like these types of games, group activities, and interactions. What we don't like is that forced, stilted role-playing that just don't, okay? If you want us to actually practice social skills and do it outside a social setting, start with getting a group of their peers around them to play something like D&D. Then start inviting other neurotypicals, because believe it or not, folks, neurotypical nerds are real. I know. I'm sorry, but I've had to explain that before. They exist. There's D&D nerds who are not one of us. And then there you go. There's your social interaction with an activity that the person's actually interested in, with the side benefit of being able to learn social skills both by interacting with the other players and by the makeups of the role-playing game itself. I could get going here. I shill for this. I shill for it constantly. Constantly. Because atypical brain kids, in a lot of ways, are not like your kids. Button 1. If it is not interesting, if what it looks like is a special level of condescending, pedantic stupid, I'm going to treat it as such. If it's something I'm actually interested in, on the other hand, I'm going to be more willing to participate. See? Yeah. Moving on. Increase presence or preferred activities, like we said. Increase positive setting events by embedding preferred activities in her daily schedule. What did I just say? 1999. This stuff is coming from the early 90s, 1996. No data. Right, doctor? The above strategies are samples of the types of researched and documented strategies that have been highly effective in addressing the behavioral needs of individuals who demonstrate the types of behaviors as X exhibits, when the function of the behavior is escape. The strategies used at JRC for X do not include these types of educative and constructive strategies. No, they include punishment, sleep deprivation, food deprivation, shock treatment, liver powdered food, and loss of privileges where they're not even allowed to speak to their peers. Isolation rooms. They don't call them isolation rooms, but guess what, Karen? If you're on loss of privileges and you're not allowed to interact with anyone except for your staff, with the guy with the remote control, that's isolation. That's the very least of what it is, but it's isolation. So what are we learning here today? We are learning that as recent as the early 90s, folks, early 90s, these practices had already been instituted. Some of them began in 1991. Some came out, a lot of them came out in the mid-90s. They've been around a long time. To sit there and try to say, but there's no data that supports it, I'm sorry, Dr. Israel, but you're lying. You are bald-faced lying. And the fact that I know you tried to discredit this woman who has more letters behind her name than you have ever had in your entire life by saying she doesn't deal with the ones as severe as the ones that are at my school. She just said it, Karen. She just said it. We're going to close on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So please, folks, don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time this evening. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. I will see you next vid.